G'day ladies and gents, and welcome back to War Thunder. Today, I'd like to talk about a little thing on the dev server that made me very not happy, very big sad, if you will, and that will be probably evident in the title. Recently, we were given a bunch of new vehicles, but they aren't exactly new. Gaijin have simply gone Control V, or Control C and then Control V. I've got it in the right order. By the way, I hope you guys enjoy the game sound. I was able to record this without any background noise, so I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if it's too loud, too soft, etc. And maybe I'll figure something out. Regardless, we got an M18 for the Italians. We also got a Sherman Firefly. And on top of that, we got an F-86K for the Germans. Now, in the background footage, you'll be seeing a Sherman, and Shermans are one of the most widely used tanks in the world, and that is reflected in War Thunder. As the meme goes, literally every nation has a Sherman, and almost every nation has a 75 Sherman. Some of them have 76s as well, but most of them only have a 75, except the Soviets who get the 76 only. So, why am I showing a Sherman in the background? Well, it kind of highlights the problem. And that problem is tanks going where they don't need to go, in tech trees where they don't need to be. Now, I get China. China is basically a copy-pasted nation up until about Tier 5. And even then, it's a little bit similar. You know, J2, J4, J6, J7 in terms of planes is the only real unique aircraft. And in tanks, the first genuinely unique tank is the Type 63. You've got the Type 59, which is essentially a T-54A, so that's not really unique, but it is, so it's not really new. Oh, I guess so, but Type 59D1, Type 69 are kind of, different. The problem is when you add stuff to a tech tree that doesn't need it. Now, let's have a look at the F-86K. It exists in 3 trees. This is okay for a couple of the trees. For example, Italy. Italy does not have a 9.3 at all. It does not have anything with missiles until the G91YS. And it certainly needs something to lead into the F-104 that we will be getting. Now, Italy needs this. Italy actually needs a supersonic jet, and they did not make one locally until a little bit later down the line. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that the Panavia Tornado was a product of a joint venture with the French, British, and the Italians. I think it was. Or was it the Germans? I actually can't quite remember, but I do know that there was one joint program that the Italians were involved in. Now, it seems that Gaijin have decided to add a couple more vehicles. And this might be just to follow on some stuff. This might be to increase the grind. I don't really know. They've given the French one, and the French have had one for a very long time. And this is because the French don't really have a sort of notable or worthy 9.3. They have the Super Mystère, and they had the Itondard, which was kind of subpar and still is not exactly ideal as a fighter. It's decent as an attacker. It's got Nords, and I would consider it to be a worthy attacker or cast plane or whatever you want to call it. As for being a fighter, I still think it's a little bit underwhelming. But regardless, we have the Sabre Dog to sort of make up for that. Now, we go to the German tree, and we see a Sabre Dog at 9.3 as well. But Germany literally has the CL-13B at 9.3. It does not need a 9.3 at all. It's just there to pad out the tech tree, to add research. And I don't really think that that's a good idea. Not only does it increase the grind and make people more frustrated unnecessarily, but it also adds to the problem of having just mixed matchmaker everywhere. Obviously, people don't like it, but this sort of thing just adds on to it. And you'll see this in sim battles as well, which is a big problem. In fact, Spookston did a fantastic video on this exact topic. He's a tanker, I'm more of a pilot, and it seems to be a bit more of an issue in tanks, especially in sim. Captured premiums, captured tanks, or Lend-Lease vehicles as well, seem to be a massive problem. And this needs to be addressed. There is no two way about it. And for ARB, I think it's also a pretty large problem. I don't really have an issue with the Hitler Bolt. I mean, it's kind of there, but it's not the end of the world. It's one plane in a sea of many unique planes. My issue is when you don't need a plane like that. Now, the Hitler Bolt was added a long time ago, and there's no removing it either. So, a plane or tank that is about to be introduced and is captured or lend-lease and does not need to be there should be removed, and we should be asking Gaijin to remove that immediately. And I am extremely serious when I say that. I think it is absolutely frustrating that this has to be added to the game. I do not see it as necessary at all in the slightest, and there is no place for it. It just adds to the grind and is unnecessary padding to a nation that has enough as it is. Sure, you may want yourself a saber dog. That's why you go and grind the Italian tree, or you go and grind the French tree. You don't just simply go and grab, I don't know, an A4B and then, because multiple nations used it, you can chuck it in multiple trees. Just because, I don't know, I guess Israel used a Spitfire and a captured Bf-109 doesn't mean that you can add the Israeli tree and then sell premiums like that. Or worse, add them to the regular tree and then just have them thrown in with a mixed matchmaker. It doesn't add to the game experience. In fact, it detracts from it. One of the things that people really love about War Thunder is that asymmetric matchmaker, and Spookston also covered this regarding tanks. I'd like to also mention with tanks, specifically, there's no reason to even add the Firefly 5C and the Hellcat to the Italian tree. Those particular tanks. The simple reason is the Italians have the Breda and the Tipo 1C. They literally have tech tree equivalents in there already that are unique enough. The Breda, excellent vehicle. I'm thrilled that it's in War Thunder. And you know what? If there's another variant of the Breda, I would love to see it. But what I would not like to see is an extra vehicle from a tech tree that we already have, from a nation that we've already covered. And on top of that, this tank exists in multiple nations. What are you going to do in sim battles? What about the BMP-1? The Sperrpanzer BMP-1 sits in the German tree. The ZBD-86 sits in the Chinese tree. And then you've got the Russian one, the BMP-1. The Hellcat, again, Chinese, American, and now Italian. I don't see a need for this at all. In fact, I see it as detrimental to the gameplay. And I know a lot of you guys will agree with me. So what I suggest is exactly this. This particular stuff must stop. The copy-paste is only necessary when there is a BR gap. The Sperrpanzer BMP-1 is fine. The Sperrpanzer, or the LEK M41, the German M41, perfectly necessary. It is there to fill in a gap in a tech tree where there is a gap. And that is a fantastic addition to the game. It is unique in its shell selection. It has, a role in the tech tree. It was used. It existed. What more could you want from that LEK M41? The BMP-1, or the Sperrpanzer BMP-1, is fairly decent. But honestly, you have the Begleitpanzer. You would have Marder variants that you could add to the game. And this is, whilst it's just a stopgap measure, I don't see it as necessary. I would rather wait and suffer for an extra couple months than have to deal with more copy and paste, which is permanent and never comes out of the game. I see that as a big loss, and I would much rather it be in the way of waiting. I just don't see it as a good long-term solution. And again, I think a lot of you will agree with me in that respect. The Shermans, sure, maybe. Maybe one or two. And if they're on the Axis side, I can kind of get on board with that. Especially stuff that is crossing the line, or crossing the field, if you will. Switching sides. Although I know the Italians did actually have some forces that fought for the Allies, I still think it is important that Italy at least during the war, or during the period of its involvement in World War II, remains on the Axis side. If they want to go down this path, then they should at least, at the very, very least, switch the matchmaker at around about the tier 4 mark, or the tier 3 mark. I think that at least would be reasonable. Because at that point, Italy becomes very much an ally, or a NATO nation, or whatever you'd like to call it, instead of being an Axis nation, and can therefore fight on an NATO versus Warsaw Pact type matchmaker instead of an Allies versus Axis. Especially for simulator battles. I think that is really important, and that's something that Gaijin has forgotten. Something needs to be done, and I think the best step at the moment is for this to not be introduced to the game, period. Especially where it is not needed. Anyway, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Please let Gaijin know your thoughts. Take care, and I will catch you next time.